Prepare to be stunned as we dive into the most jaw-dropping upsets in MMA history. Number 1. Holm vs. Ronda Rousey, UFC, November 14, 2015. Ronda Rousey was not just a champion. She was a phenomenon in the world of mixed martial arts, MMA. As the UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion, Rousey had become the face of women's MMA, known for her judo-based grappling skills, quick armbar finishes, and unparalleled dominance in the octagon. Her rise to stardom had been meteoric, with each victory more convincing than the last. Rousey's ability to dispatch her opponents often within the first round had created an aura of invincibility around her. She wasn't just winning, she was making statements with each fight, seemingly light years ahead of her competition in terms of skill and intensity. Holm, a world-class striker with an impressive pedigree in boxing and kickboxing. Despite her credentials, including multiple world championships in boxing, Holm was largely viewed through the lens of skepticism when matched against Rousey. Critics and fans alike questioned whether her striking prowess could translate effectively into the octagon, especially against a grappler of Rousey's caliber. The narrative leading up to their showdown at UFC 193 was heavily skewed in Rousey's favor, with many expecting the fight to follow a familiar script: a swift takedown by Rousey, followed by her signature armbar submission. However, Holm was not to be underestimated. Her preparation for the fight was meticulous, with a focus on maintaining distance, utilizing her superior footwork, and exploiting Rousey's aggression. The boxing ring had taught Holm the art of the counterpunch, a skill she adapted seamlessly to MMA. Yet, despite her formidable skill set, Holm entered the octagon as the underdog, with the weight of public expectation firmly on Rousey's shoulders. The clash between Rousey's grappling and Holm's striking presented a fascinating stylistic matchup, pitting the judo Olympian against the boxing world champion. It was a fight that promised to test the boundaries of both athletes' abilities and challenge the preconceived notions of MMA fans worldwide. As fight night approached, the question on everyone's mind was not if Rousey would win, but how quickly. Little did they know, they were about to witness one of the most shocking upsets in MMA history. The fight was a striking masterclass from Holm, who utilized her superior boxing skills to keep Rousey at bay. In the second round, Holm delivered a head kick heard around the world, knocking Rousey out cold and ending her reign as champion. Aftermath: the upset catapulted Holm to international fame, while Rousey took a significant hit to her previously invincible image. Rousey fought only once more before retiring, while Holm has remained a top contender in the UFC. Number 2. Matt Serra vs. Georges St-Pierre 1, UFC, April 7, 2007. Georges St-Pierre, widely known by his initials GSP, had ascended to the pinnacle of the welterweight division with a blend of athleticism, technique, and strategic acumen rarely seen in the sport. His comprehensive skill set allowed him to dominate opponents in every facet of mixed martial arts, from striking and wrestling to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. GSP's reign as the UFC welterweight champion was not just marked by victories, but by the methodical and decisive manner in which he dispatched challengers. As he prepared for his first title defense, his status as a champion was seen as the beginning of a long and dominant era. Matt Serra, on the other hand, was a seasoned fighter with a strong background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, holding a black belt under Renzo Gracie. Despite his grappling credentials, Serra was not considered a major threat to the welterweight throne. His route to the title shot was unconventional. He earned his opportunity by winning the 4th season of The Ultimate Fighter, a reality show that pitted veterans of the sport against each other with a UFC contract and a title shot on the line. Serra's victory on the show was a feel-good story, but few believed it would translate into success against a champion of GSP's caliber. The matchup between GSP and Serra was perceived as a classic David versus Goliath scenario. GSP's well-rounded game, physical advantages, and champion's pedigree seemed to overshadow Serra's capabilities, particularly in the stand-up department, where GSP's striking was considered superior. The narrative leading up to their fight at UFC 69 painted Serra as a likable but ultimately outmatched contender, with the expectation being another showcase of GSP's dominance. The fight community buzzed with anticipation, curious to see how Serra's gritty determination and ground game would fare against the polished, seemingly invincible champion. However, the prevailing sentiment was that Serra's victory on The Ultimate Fighter had merely earned him a ticket to a public execution. Analysts and fans debated not if GSP would win, but how quickly and emphatically he would do so. As the fight night approached, the air was thick with expectation, setting the stage for what would become one of the most memorable and transformative moments in the history of the UFC. What transpired in the octagon would serve as a powerful reminder of the unpredictability of mixed martial arts and the inherent drama that makes the sport so compelling. The clash between GSP and Serra was poised to challenge preconceptions, shake the foundations of the welterweight division, and etch itself into MMA lore as a testament to the fighting spirit. The fight. Serra shocked the world by overwhelming GSP early in the fight with a barrage of punches, ultimately finishing the champion via TKO in the first round to claim the welterweight title. Aftermath. This fight is often cited as the biggest upset in UFC history. GSP would later avenge his loss to Serra and go on to become one of the greatest fighters in MMA history. Serra, meanwhile, has secured his place in MMA lore with his unlikely victory. Number 3. Gabriel Gonzaga vs. Mirko Cro Cop, UFC 70, April 21, 2007. Background. Mirko Cro Cop Filipovic entered the UFC with a reputation that preceded him, a storied career marked by devastating knockouts, primarily through his signature left head kick, which had become the stuff of legend in the fight world. His mantra, right leg hospital, left leg cemetery, was not just a catchy phrase but a factual account of the outcomes faced by many of his opponents. Cro Cop's arrival in the UFC was met with great anticipation, as fans and pundits alike were eager to see how the Croatian striker's skills would translate in the promotion's heavyweight division. His background in kickboxing and K1, coupled with high-profile victories over some of the most respected fighters in mixed martial arts, had established him as one of the most dangerous strikers in the world. Gabriel Gonzaga, by contrast, was known for his prowess on the ground. A highly decorated Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, Gonzaga had demonstrated his submission skills in previous fights, securing victories through his technical grappling. However, his striking, while effective, was not seen as being on the same level as Cro Cop's. As such, the general consensus was that if the fight stayed standing, Gonzaga would be at a significant disadvantage, whereas the ground would be his domain. The matchup presented a classic striker versus grappler scenario, with the expectation that the fight's outcome would hinge on where the battle was fought. The narrative leading up to their encounter at UFC 70 painted Gonzaga as a considerable underdog. Cro Cop was not only expected to win, but to do so in spectacular fashion, potentially setting up a title shot against then-champion Randy Couture. This fight was seen as a stepping stone, a necessary hurdle for Cro Cop to clear on his way to UFC gold. For Gonzaga, the fight represented an opportunity to ascend the heavyweight ranks and prove that he was more than just a ground specialist. As fight night approached, the excitement was palpable. Fans were eager to witness Cro Cop's striking prowess against an opponent who, while skilled, was not expected to withstand the Croatian's power. The bout was seen as a litmus test for Cro Cop's potential dominance in the UFC heavyweight division, an opportunity for him to cement his status as a top contender and for Gonzaga to defy expectations and make a name for himself on the biggest stage in mixed martial arts. What ensued in the octagon would shock the MMA community and forever change the trajectories of both fighters' careers. The clash between Mirko Cro Cop and Gabriel Gonzaga was a stark reminder of the unpredictability of combat sports, where conventional wisdom can be upended in a moment's notice, and underdogs can seize their moment to achieve the unimaginable. The fight. In a stunning turn of events, Gonzaga delivered a head kick knockout, reminiscent of Cro Cop's own signature move, in the first round, derailing the Croatian's title aspirations. Aftermath. Gonzaga's victory was a defining moment in his career. Though he was unable to capture the UFC heavyweight title, Cro Cop recovered from the loss and continued to compete at a high level in various organizations. Number 4. Chris Weidman vs. Anderson Silva 1. UFC 162, July 6, 2013. Background. Anderson Silva's tenure as the UFC middleweight champion was nothing short of historic. With a fighting style that combined masterful striking, elusive movement, and a flair for the dramatic. Silva had not just dominated his division but done so with an air of invincibility. His victories were often punctuated by spectacular knockouts or submissions, showcasing a level of creativity and skill that seemed generations ahead of his contemporaries. By the time Silva was set to defend his title against Chris Weidman, he had successfully defended his belt a record-setting 10 times, defeating a who's who of the middleweight division in the process. His name was synonymous with greatness in MMA, and debates about the greatest of all time frequently began and ended with Silva. Chris Weidman, on the other hand, was a rising star in the division. An All-American wrestler with a developing striking game, Weidman possessed the kind of well-rounded skill set that theoretically posed a challenge to Silva's reign. Yet, despite his undefeated record and clear talent, Weidman was viewed through a lens of skepticism. Critics pointed to his relatively short resume in the UFC and questioned whether he had faced the level of competition necessary to prepare him for a fighter of Silva's caliber. The narrative surrounding the fight was clear. Weidman was a promising talent, but Silva was a legend at the peak of his powers. The expectation was for another Silva masterclass, where he would once again affirm his status as the division's undisputed king. The build-up to UFC 162 was marked by a palpable sense of anticipation. Fans were eager to see if Weidman could rise to the occasion and challenge Silva in ways that previous contenders had not. There was a feeling that while Silva had faced and defeated wrestlers before, Weidman's combination of wrestling pedigree, athleticism, and improving striking might present a new kind of challenge. However, the overwhelming consensus remained that Silva would find a way to win, as he always had. Inside the Silva camp, there was a quiet confidence. Silva had faced and overcome every style and strategy thrown at him. His ability to read opponents and adapt mid-fight was unparalleled, and his striking accuracy and power were seen as too much for any middleweight, including Weidman. For Silva, this was an opportunity to further cement his legacy and perhaps set up super fights outside the middleweight division. For Weidman, the fight represented the culmination of a lifetime of training and competition. It was a chance to dethrone a legend and establish himself as the new king of the middleweight division. The narrative of being an underdog was familiar to Weidman, and it was a role he embraced. In his mind, the pressure was all on Silva. He had everything to gain and nothing to lose. As fight night arrived, the tension was palpable. What transpired in the octagon would not only shock the world, but also serve as a stark reminder of the unpredictability of mixed martial arts. The fight between Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman would go down in history as a turning point for both fighters, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another. The fight. Weidman ended Silva's historic title reign with a second-round knockout, capitalizing on Silva's infamous taunting and lack of defense. Aftermath. Weidman's victory over Silva is a stark reminder of MMA's unpredictable nature. Silva attempted to regain the title in a rematch, but was unsuccessful, while Weidman's career has been marked by highs and lows since the victory. MMA upsets serve as powerful reminders of the sport's unpredictability, where determination, skill, and sometimes a bit of luck can lead to outcomes that defy expectations. These shocking moments not only shake up divisions but also offer valuable lessons about the importance of preparation, humility, and the never-say-die spirit inherent to combat sports. As MMA continues to evolve, there's no doubt that future generations of fighters will add their own upset victories to the annals of the sport's history. And there you have it, the most shocking upsets in MMA history that prove anything can happen inside the octagon. These underdogs didn't just win fights. They won our hearts and etched their names into MMA lore forever. What did you think of our list? Were there any upsets we missed that you think deserved a spot? Drop us a comment below and let us know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this journey through the world of MMA underdogs, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Fight Chronicles for more content just like this. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight, and remember, in the world of MMA, it's never over until it's over. See you in the next round.